Welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and we have a very special car in the garage today, the Ferrari 250 GTO. And if you're just thinking, this doesn't look like a 250 GTO, there is a Series 1 250 GTO and a Series 2 250 GTO. And I suppose the one that everybody recognises is the initial version of it, the Series 1. The Series 2 came out in '64 when it had done incredible racing during the '63 season, but they just wanted to make it even faster. And this is one of those, the Series 2, of which there are 7. There's 36 250 GTOs in all and 7 of the Series 2. But what makes this car so fascinating, this is chassis number 4399. It raced as a Series 1 250 GTO, if you're keeping up, but its race history in '63 was just off the scale. Extraordinarily successful race car. It was owned by Maranello concessionaires, Colonel Hall, and in September of '63, he sent it back to Maranello and said, I want it even faster, turn it into the Series 2, rebody it. There were 7 of the Series 2 produced, and only 3 of them were actually new chassis numbers. 4 were modified Series 1 250 GTO. Anyway, lots to explain in this video. Let's go and have a closer look. So if we just wind the clock back to the early '60s, when this car was current, the race car of the period. In 1960, the most successful sort of endurance race of the GT class, GT Berlinetta, was the Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta, the short wheelbase car. And that was a very successful race car, very successful for Ferrari. But some of the customers of that car say this car is really fast, but it's just a bit unstable, a bit unnerving at speed, and they wanted some improvements. How can you make this car more stable at speed when I've got direction change? And can you get the top speed higher? And that is where the 250 GTO came in. It's basically an Evo version of the 250 short wheelbase, as we call it today. And Bizzarini was at Ferrari, and they were experimenting with aerodynamics at the time and how they could make their very successful 250 short wheelbase even faster. And what they did, they basically went back to basics. What makes a race car fast? Its cornering, its stability, and they looked at aero. Pisa University helped them, wind tunnel work, and the look of the Series 1 GTO was to make it go through the air cleaner, but also more stable. And it was like the first front engine Ferrari to have a sort of kick up rear spoiler on it. And it was longer in the body, just more stable. And it had a smaller frontal area. You think how successful like the Jaguar D-Type was, that sort of very flowing, obviously aerodynamic shape, small mouth. Well, that's what 250 GTO was. And if you ever see those sort of D-vents at the front on a 250 GTO, well, they were to increase the airflow to the radiator in hotter climates or something like that. But if they could keep those all covered, it was even slipperier and even faster down the straights. 250 short wheelbase was around 155 top speed. 250 GTO, well, what was it, 170 plus, so significantly faster and more stable because the aero had been sorted. It had that kick at the rear, and they also, we'll have a look at the rear of this car, but they had a under tray. They're like the very first sort of idea of a diffuser at the back. So they managed the airflow underneath the car as well. The other thing they did over the 250 short wheelbase is they dry sumped the engine, and that set it much lower in the chassis. I'm going to quickly open this one up. And they moved it back in the chassis. They moved it quite a long way back to begin with, but it actually increased the heat in the cabin by too much. It was just too much for the driver. So they moved it forward ever so slightly, and that is where the gills on a 250 GTO came from, was to vent from the engine bay all that heat from this wonderful V12. I just open this up, and you'll see, dry sumped, it sits much lower in the car than it does in a 250 short wheelbase. 6 carburetors, incredible engine, very highly tuned, 3 litres. So 250, as we all know, is the size of the cc's for each individual cylinder, makes 3 litre. That was an FIA requirement for the GT class. maximum 3 litre. Le Mans was different, and that's how you got bigger engine cars. And they were just nervous, the FIA, that this endurance racing series, their cars were getting too fast. It was unlimited, the engine size. Late 50s, there were some very powerful cars, and they were very nervous after the accident at Le Mans in 55. They didn't want to repeat that, so they were almost restricting the cars with this 3 litre limit. The other thing you had to have, which I find fascinating, is it had to be enclosed, and according to the FIA, if I actually look at the wording for 1960 FIA Championship, was closed cabin GT cars, road usable with fully operational road equipment. That's all except that Le Mans, they were okay with the cut down screens and the more race car almost. They felt it was almost Grand Prix cars was the nervousness of FIA. And that is why all 250 GTOs carry a number plate and they have indicators and lights and things. And that is why they're almost mythical, because they're these road going front engine Ferraris that were incredibly successful in period. Now, let's just talk about what happened for the 64 season. So this is, some people call it a 250-64. I've been very helped by a book, Doug Nye book, on the GTO 64. Wonderful, wonderful book, telling me about this car. It's extraordinary, this amazing book with so much detail for 7 cars. That's all that exists of a 250 GTO 64 Series 2 like this. And if you're thinking, we just walk around the back, if you're thinking, hang on a minute, isn't this a Ferrari 250 LM? It has that look about it. And what happened was FIA insisted on front engine. They did not let in the Ferrari LM, even though it was in production to the race series. It was not allowed to race for the 64 season. But this was the look, and it's incredible to look back, but people felt that the Ferrari 250 GTO looked a bit old-fashioned because the trend was to go to mid-engine. This was a front-engine Ferrari. Ooh, we're not sure about that. We want the mid-engine. We want that look. And what they did during that winter of 63 into 64 for these Series 2 was actually to look at the aero. They had wider wheels and tyres than the Series 1, how you enclose that, how we can increase the way it goes through the air and even more stable, and basically make it look more modern. And the way they did that was to make it look like the latest car from Ferrari, the mid-engine LM. So that's the look. One other fun detail with the regulations, you had to have a boot. You had to have a volume of boot space to make sure it was road going. Huge fuel tank, absolutely huge. I think it's 130 litres it holds, quite extraordinary, and riveted tank underneath there. And if you come right round the back, there's that square tail, there's cam spoiler here that was also on the Series 1, 4 pipes, extraordinary car, and very successful race car as well. I love this fuel filler and just how neat all the bodywork is here. Opens like that, and you just imagine filling that size. It has to be that size to get that amount of fuel in during a pit stop. How do they make it quicker to refill? Glorious car, all aluminium, obviously. I checked the weight on it, and it's 1,010 kilos, this car. One other thing I should have added, this is a later edition, because again, it's a permanent ways of improving the car. They actually opened up the vent here to feed those 6 carbs on top. Originally, they were fed from the radiator down here, got airflow from here, but to make sure they got cool air, late mid-season in 64, they added that scoop on the front. And it is an extraordinary engine. It was very reliable. It's basically, as I say, a 250 short wheelbase Evo. So the engine was race proven, very reliable unit. And it is quite a sophisticated engine for Ferrari. So higher compression, angrier cams, and they've got needle bearings in all the rockers, etc., so it can rev very high. If I look at the description of its power from races at the period, Well, it was 300 horsepower, 7,500 RPM, this engine. Really comes on cam at 4,000, and sings from 5,500 to 7,500 RPM. Maximum revs, well, depends how much you wanted to win or go for that corner, but 8,000, perhaps 8,500 RPM for very short periods. And apparently the valve springs start to break up if you go over 9,000 RPM, which you're not going to do in a race. But a very successful engine, and in this form, in the GTO, dry sumped. But it was 3 litre. And that didn't help it at Le Mans, where bigger engines are coming along. You think an E-Type started at 3.8, went to 4.2. Cobras, they were 6 litre plus 7 litres. And then the big change when they eventually moved to mid-engine, the 66 season, where it all changed. Ford GT, 7 litre V8, lots of horsepower, and swept the board. So that was the change from this. But it is an extraordinary engine. We'll go out on the road in a moment and you'll see more about it. But just to show you how different this engine is to a regular like American V8. The race American V8 engines in Cobras, they reckon it took 900 parts to build one of those engines. If you actually got a 250 GTO engine and spread it out, the number of parts to make this engine is 5,500 parts. Completely different ballpark from the American V8 engine, with pushrod V8. Very sophisticated engine, but single cam in the heads, not a quad cam engine. Other things to note, they mounted the oil tank is in the back. There's a filler just the other side. It takes 20 litres of oil under there. And very surprised. I remember years ago I was at Maranello at the factory and they had a 250 GTO on the lift. And I thought, oh, I can't wait to see how amazing suspension. No, it's leaf springs and a live axle under there. Just very well, it's better located in this car. And the gearbox is actually mounted on the engine. But yeah, what a car this is. And if you look at the grille, it does actually have the little D vents underneath, the sort of typical 250 GTO looks, but they just wanted a bigger mouth on it to make sure it runs cool, and it does run very cool, this there. Reliability was one of the star things about Ferrari 250 GTOs. They didn't break, they just carried on. You just had to get to the finish. You also notice this really wrap-round screen, much more pronounced than on a 250 GTO. It's all to do with aerodynamics, how they can make this car even faster. Now, this isn't going to be a regular Harry's Garage and we can take it around on my favourite roads. Even though I have driven this on the favourites, I have to tell a story of how I came about to drive this car. I was given the call, but it's owned by a local farmer up the road, and he had to move 6 cars to Salon Privé. And I had no idea I was going to drive this car. I got to the workshop, purely a delivery job as far as I knew, and they said, you ought to drive this. And I jumped in this and drove it to Salon Privé, Blenheim Palace, I don't know, 15, 20 miles away. And it was cold, unplanned. I did have a camera, I suckered some cameras on just to share the experience. Annoyingly, I managed to mount a camera right where you'd really like to see the convoy I was in. I was following the green Series 1 250 GTO, I was following that, and I was on my favourite bit of road, and behind me I had a D-Type, it had 250 Testarossa 1958 Ferrari as well, an extraordinary convoy. It was quite intimidating, and that first time I've been in this car, it's quite compact inside, it's extraordinarily loud, but what a sound. There is a lot of smell of fuel because it's over fuels a race. This is race car for the road, and it was an extraordinary experience. I'm just going to share some of that now, put some of that footage just to give you a taste of what this car is like on road. So that was my first taste of 250 GTO. I was in a slight state of shock by the end of it, but I hope you got a sense of it. And the owner of this car, he bought it way back, 1969. He first saw it doing practice at Le Mans in 1964. Thought, wow, one day I'll own that car. And in 1969, he finally realised his dream. And back in the 60s, there was no historic racing scene. Once the car was no longer winning races, you moved on to the next best thing. And FIA had actually upped the CC of the engine. Mid-engine had come in. It wasn't no longer competitive. And they were just sort of sold off. And I love the story of this car, how it ended up. And on Instagram, there's a Ferrari 250 short wheelbase. And I just stumbled across it. And he did a post on what happened next to this car after it finished racing, chassis 4399. In September 1965, man about town, George Drummond, Gorgeous George, bought the car, but he wanted a faster, more comfortable everyday car, so he decided to change the specification on it. And he reupholstered it with a soft Italian leather. He fitted a full-length sunroof in it. He put electric windows in it, and he even went to the effort of putting a record player in it. So you could play small 45 records of the day, singles of the day. Quite mad, and a Tatler did an article on it, and there's a wonderful photograph of it. Just laid outside, slight dent of the front. I think the other thing he did was put Ferrari 275 bumpers, quarter bumpers on it as well. And looking at Doug Nye's book as well, he comments that it was a regular sight, a few hundred yards, Walton Street I think it was, near Harrods in London, two wheels up on the curb, and was just living a life in London. Extraordinary. And back then, the values of the car, according to the Doug Nye book, late 60s, they're around £5,000. There was no real value to them because they were noisy, uncomfortable things. But the owner of the car was just loved the race history of this car, thought it was just beautiful, and he's owned it since 1969. Quite incredible. So an amazing back history of the car. It has been extremely active with the current owner. They've done so many tours, so much driving, so much racing. Now it's come into, historic racing is a thing. It's done an enormous amount of racing as well, and it's as fit as anything. So that was my first experience going to Salon Privé. I thought that was going to be it, but no, I got another call. Could you help move the cars back from Benno Paz and help bring them back home? And it was just the most magic moment. We went down, it was Sunday evening, sun was going down, glorious colours, and we had this incredible convoy. This time I was third in line, the 250 GTO was leading the group, the Series 1, then a Ferrari 58 Testarossa, and then me and this, and a D-Type behind me. And just the sounds, the sensations, just will live with me forever. So now, I'm just going to show you how to start this car, and then I'll drop in, because I had a microphone in the car, my drive experience of this 250 GTO. And please excuse if I just add quite a lot of the car and the sounds it makes to the next part of this video, because this is such a fabulous car. I've whittled on enough about all the details of it. You need to hear it, see it, the sensation of this car. So let's just work out how you start. I'm going to quickly show you the inside. Very compact. This is as far back as the seat goes. I'm up against the roof. You'll see there's no headlining, no nothing in here. It is completely bare. And what I like about it, it's got various things, because it has to have lights, got indicators you can see. What I'm staring at is this tacho and oil pressure and temperature I've got here as well, water temperature, fuel pressure, and then fuel tank as well. And this very unusual wheel, which I've never seen before, with a Ferrari emblem inset into the wheel and these screws up here. Everything is original on this car. Now, to start it, let's have a look if this is on. There we go. That's the fuel pumps going. I'll give it a couple of squirts, and I push the starter, the key in. There we are. Wonderful gear change. If you have a look at the gear change, dogleg gear change, reverse up here. Already got pressure, I've got a little bit of heat. I love the tacho doing this, shaking away. If I put it up, if I make the rev steady, very happy, very healthy. What I'm going to do now is drop in the drive back from Salon Privé the other Sunday. It was just magic, as you're about to see. Yeah, just warming up the 250 GTO for the ride home. The good news is the rain has dissipated and it's got bright outside, which is good news when you're in these cars. It's like dry roads, but just stunning. So we're just starting and trying to get heated in. I'm just looking, I've got 50 degrees on oil. I'm waiting for it's just moved off the stop, the water temperature. All is good, and if I let it go down, tick over, yeah, oil pressure isn't dropping, so yeah, we need to get a fair bit of heat in it. A bit more temperature now. Amazing history, this car's, what it's got. Cool, I'll read out the history because it is extraordinary. Goodwood Whitsun Trophy winner first, Spa 500 kilometre first, unbelievable. Silverstone GT race, Tourist Trophy Goodwood first, Graham Hill. Some history. Cooper Inter Europa Monza second, Mike Parks. Snetterton 3 hours second, Mike Parks. Goodwood Trophy in 64 first, Graham Hill. International Trophy first, Graham Hill. So I got too busy reading. You talk about race history and then you get in here and it's just off the scale, the race history on this car. Finally getting out of Blenheim. Big relief. So many spotters, but it's a pretty good sight, isn't it? Smell of fumes. It's extraordinary. Yeah, part throttle in a 250 GTO. It's all a bit much for it. It likes to be flat out. It's a race car. That's what they want. They don't like ticking around in traffic. I've lost my convoy. Here we go. Talking in this video, I hope you understand. Not quite sure what 50 miles an hour is. Obviously there's no speedo in this car, but this feels about right. Flavour and the sound of a 250 GTO. Imagine racing this car. They were all long distance events, that's what it was made for. They must have been utterly deaf at the end of a race, I don't know how they did it.
comes on cam, because this, it really gets energised. The gear change almost wants to break free. Nearly, there it goes. Just when it comes on cam, it does that. Wow. That's quite bright, that sun. No sun visors, obviously. It's a race car, way too much. I've still got cars behind. I have a cars behind. I have a D-Type behind. Testarossa in front. And a 250 GTO in front of that. The White Sun convoy. Goes well. Very curved screen. It's quite remarkable how curved the screen is in this Mark II version. Really noticeable. Dare I say, it's a little like Koenigsegg. Love the flapping wiper. Can't see that being very good. Kind of raining them on Silverstone. It is a rather pinch yourself moment in this convoy, I have to say. The sun is blinding at times. Flames spitting from that Testarossa ahead. Brakes, they wouldn't be recognisable as brakes in 2025, but that's what they were like back in the day. The cars were really quick, but the braking was always an issue. There it goes again. Oh, my head hurts. final bit to get home now. Oh, it's so glorious looking at that. Unforgettable drive. And we're home. Wow. Wow. Oh, what a drive that was. That's probably about the only time you can hear me. Unforgettable. Look at the view out. The Testarossa, the 63 250 GTO ahead and a D-Type behind. Setting sun, Sunday evening, perfect weather, blue skies. Yeah, I can't really do conclusions on driving this. I suppose what I would say, this Mark II 250 GTO, very definitely race car on the road. Extreme, really, race car. Not a lot of creature comforts in here, but the engine utterly dominates everything. Feels unburstable, really. It makes a lot of noise, a lot of mechanical noise coming from there, and exhaust and induction and cams, and huge. Sort of engaged with it, and this perfect gear change, really light change, lovely change, low gear, so you're using it a lot. Just lovely, and this overwhelming smell of petrol in here as well, but just the sensations off the frigging scale. I'm very, very grateful to Will Bamford letting me drive this car. I think he's owned it from, I think it was 1970. He bought this, it was the first one, and then he bought Testarossa, and then he bought the green 250 GTO, all within a period in the early 70s. What an extraordinary experience to have all three cars together and owned by a very passionate owner who just loves to see them being driven. So there you go. Quite an experience. I hope you enjoyed coming along for the ride. If you did, well, please keep watching, keep subscribing, because there'll be more videos coming along very soon. Thanks for watching.